Hello, everybody. It's Brian. This is my first draft of segment 2 for the braided essay. I don't have a title yet, but it's about cars. The VW Vortex claims that their website has over 1 million unique visitors each month, and it's the largest enthusiast forum on the internet. Bimmer Forums, which caters exclusively to BMW owners, is about the same size. Of course, only about a third of those visitors are registered users, but the numbers are still staggering considering that there are hundreds of these forums, each with its own community and each with dozens of sub-communities under a larger brand-specific umbrella. Car clubs have always been about locating people who share your interests, and as with all hobbies, the internet has made that really easy to do and on a much larger scale. This has been a boon to car geeks, and there are many vibrant, active communities where the like-minded and self-identified motorhead can indulge his obsession. It's often said that the first automobile race happened just as soon as the second car was built. I like to think that the first car club happened about the same time. But that term, car club, is in and of itself a very vague designation. There are clubs based on specific marques or models, and clubs based on certain eras or uses, like racing. But there are nearly as many clubs that are focused on lifestyles, where the particular type of a vehicle is more of an accessory to the social benefits of membership. The car is still an object of obsession and veneration, but its primary role is that of a social signal. By honoring the norms of a particular group, be they personalization styles, shared language, or club events, one is able to claim membership and thereby belong. So although many car cultures appear to be simply about connecting with others that share your internal combusted obsession, this can be secondary to simply using cars as a totem around which to form a community. It's the world's largest meetup of 1950s American cars. 1950s and 60s American cars with over 17,000 vehicles and at one time up to 200,000 visitors over its 3 days. The aesthetic is pure greaser. Denim jackets, white t-shirts, slick back pompadours, and girls in bobby socks. Period rockabilly music blasts from speakers and everyone is a rebel without a cause. It's power big meat and it all takes place in Sweden. Sweden now has more restored 1950s American cars than the United States, and there's a huge subculture around them called reggae. And this isn't new either. It's been going on for years, starting after World War II. Sweden managed to stay relatively neutral during the war and so sidestepped the need to rebuild. Between that good fortune and still receiving Marshall Plan aid, Sweden had a strong post-war economy and became a leading market for Western goods, including Fords, Chryslers, and Chevys. The term reggae comes from the Swedish term rega, which means, roughly translated, picking up girls for backseat hookups, something that the early reggae hoped to accomplish by impressing the young ladies with their hot rods. The persona they projected was worrisome to the locals, and they had a reputation for fast driving, alcohol, and fighting. During the 1970s, punk rockers became their favored target for fisticuffs, leading to several near riots outside of Stockholm music venues. The cars, called reggaebil, are customized but in a real rough fashion. Lots of money is spent, but the apparent age and roughness can be part of the charm. These aren't garage queens. They're built to cruise and party in. Convertibles and bench seats are favored because one of the activities is piling as many of your friends as possible into your reggaebil. There are many junkyards in Sweden filled with old U.S. cars, and they continue to be imported by thousands even today. There are reggae groups in Denmark, Norway, and Germany too, although these are typically smaller or less active. Only in Sweden is it such a big scene. Nowadays, there are still young, aggressive reggae looking for trouble, but the norm is typically middle-aged men and women who meet up on the weekends to show off their vintage iron. It still tends to be very lowbrow, and the culture is derided as trashy, but it's mostly all in good fun. Now imagine a group of up to 100 motorcycles following a leader that none are allowed to pass. Some are dressed in black leather. Others have silk jackets emblazoned with rising sun patches or kanji letters and sport hachimaki headbands. They take over the boulevards of certain Japanese cities during the evening, smashing windows, weaving in and out of traffic, and in general creating havoc. Their bikes are highly modified with extended fairings, tall handlebars, and high seat backs. There's an air of ritual to their shenanigans as they ride in formation. Like the Reggae, the Bosozoku of Japan were formed in the wake of World War II, and they too have appropriated the American bad boy culture. Bosozoku translates roughly as violent speed tribes, which is fair given the amount of public nuisance they are known for. Besides the greaser look, black leather jackets, pompadour hairstyles, there's also an identification with samurai or even kamikaze subcultures. They're primarily teenagers who view their rebellion as against traditionally staid Japanese culture as a form of social protest. The hell-raising ways of the Bosozoku make them fertile recruiting ground for Japanese organized crime, including the Yakuza. There are, of course, posers and hangers-on who adopt the style but not the cultural roots. In fact, some believe that the real Bosozoku are in steep decline since their numbers peaked in the 1980s. But even as these rebels start to fade, their aesthetic has migrated to four wheels. The violence of the Bosozoku is now more in the crazy styling, a mashup of 2-meter-tall exhaust pipes sticking straight up in the back of a car and comically overstated fins and wings out front, typically applied to a 70s or 80s Japanese sedan. They're still definitely rebels, just design rebels. Here in the U.S., lowriders may be the ultimate in cars as an expression of cultural identity. They're important touchstones in both Chicano and African American society as expressions of identity and solidarity. Lowriders first appeared in the Southwest around LA in the 1930s, but it wasn't until post-World War II era that they truly blossomed. These rolling artworks are not only magnificent custom cars, but served a couple of social purposes as well. Southern California Chicanos were typically oppressed, excluded, and kept segregated in specific neighborhoods. By driving their lowriders through neighboring areas, they were able to expand their space by increasing awareness, knowledge, and acceptance of Chicano culture. Lowrider art was initially abstract, but by the 1960s, artists were including many symbolic and evocative images of the new Aztlan, the Aztec homeland, ensured viewers that they belong, should be proud of their heritage, and might one day reclaim what was once theirs. Other murals depict the Virgin of Guadalupe, often seen as a symbol of resistance to oppression and hope. This was a custom car as a revolutionary statement, fueling self-esteem, reinforcing positive values, and pushing back on power structures, all while making the Chicano identity and artwork visible beyond the barrio. It's very unfortunate that this cultural icon, this rolling statement, has come to be associated with gangs and violence. Negative portrayals by Chicanos, by Hollywood and the media have led to this false association. Police harass the lowrider community and use this false presumption of gang activity as a reason to remove Chicanos from white neighborhoods. This is sad and ironic, as the whole point of the art form was about expressing authenticity, cultural identity, and overcoming oppressive stereotypes. Lowrider culture has since spread far and wide beyond its East LA roots and is common all over the Southwest and into Colorado and Texas. And in fact, the National Lowrider Club Registry at lowrider.com lists hundreds of lowrider clubs covering every state in the U.S. And the best part is it doesn't even have to be a car. A lowrider can be a truck, a motorcycle, or even a bicycle. Car culture is richly varied and encompasses many contexts, social functions, and cultural dimensions, and the term itself is nearly useless. Millions of people share the obsession to rally around wheeled creations, and it's not just about the car. The shared cultures that coalesce around cars, however, may be in decline, largely in part for our efforts to find more climate-neutral forms of transportation, including shared cars, public transportation, and self-driving cars. Many say that the era of automobility has peaked. Tim Dant says in the Encyclopedia of Consumer Culture that, but as the driver becomes disconnected from the vehicle's speed, direction, route, and maneuverability, and as the cultural pressure to demonstrate restraint through choice of small shared green car increases, the opportunities for expression of personal identity through the car as a possession and a cultural practice is becoming increasingly limited. Cars will once more become functional, and a flamboyant car culture of the middle of the 20th century will become much less of a remarkable feature of consumer society. I think that'd be a damn shame.